Okay, well this afternoon what I wanted to talk to you about was the body of a news story. We've already talked about how you write a lead, a regular summary lead, and we've talked about how you write a novelty lead or an alternative lead, but now how do you actually put the body of a news story together? And you guys remember Snoopy, right? Snoopy's up on his doghouse and he says, "It was a dark and stormy night." And he's thinking about it, and then he says, suddenly, a shot rang out, and he's just so proud of himself, and he says, the plot thickens. Right? Well, we already know that when we're writing a news story, at some point, we can do a summary lead. It's not the most exciting, but at some place, we've got to get all the 5 W's and an H in there. We also know that the more creative approach is to use a novelty lead or an alternative lead. It's softer, more creative, more bringing people into the news story. When you guys first took like an English class, or maybe you took a theater class, or something like that, this is the way most of the time you are organizing your stories. Am I right? It is just like Snoopy on that doghouse saying, "It was a dark and stormy night," right? And you work your way through all the details of the plot, and then at the very bottom you find out who done it, right? You know that novels are written like that, movies are written like that, TV shows, plays, and you guys even know when you're watching TV that something's happened, and then you look at the clock. Right, and you go, oh God, there's 20 minutes left, right? Yeah. Am I right? And you go, oh, there's going to be another plot twist, because you guys are used to that as well. So in this is what we call the pyramid style of writing. This is the way most things are written, right? Just like Snoopy, it was a dark and stormy night. Here's Snoopy again. It was a dark and stormy night. Suddenly, a shot rang out. A door slammed. The maid screamed. Suddenly a pirate ship appeared on the horizon. While millions of people were starving, the king lived in luxury. Meanwhile, on a small farm in Kansas, a boy was growing up. End of part 1. Part 2. A light snow was falling, and the little girl with the tattered shawl had not sold a violet all day. Right? Things. At that very moment, a young intern at City Hospital was making an important discovery. Okay. Did I go too far?
Yeah, skip one.
Skip one. Brooke, can you go back one for me? Here, just hit the backspace for me. There we go. And then he says, I may have written myself in a corner, right? Well, I want to play a little game with you guys, okay? I think I want you to tell me the story of Little Red Riding Hood, okay? And
original Grimm version, or
yeah.
Pyramid?
No, not yet, not yet. I want you to just tell me the story as you would normally tell it. And Brooke, you have you've been with daycare kids, right? How do these stories all start out?
Once upon a time, or in a land far away.
Yes. Okay. All right. Katie, then what happens in Little Red Riding Hood?
Then we meet a nice little girl.
Okay. Whose name is Little Red Riding Hood?
Right.
Okay. And what does she look like, and what is she doing?
She looks like she's wearing a little Red Riding.
Were you ever a child?
A red Riding.
And what was she doing here?
She was picking some.
She was taking lunch
To her grandma. That's right.
Maddie, what was she doing?
She was going to visit her grandma.
With
I don't know what's the best.
I don't either. It was like food or something,
Yeah, it was
right?
food. She
Yeah.
was taking like lunch.
Okay, she's going. Okay, so Maddie, she's taken there. So then, what happens at that point?
Meets a wolf.
But how does she meet the wolf before that?
I don't remember. I'm not sure.
You bear with me on
She
this?
meets him in the woods.
Yeah,
it's
on
on
the
the
way to
path.
her grandma's.
Yeah.
Because she did what?
Did she take a shortcut?
She took a shortcut.
Yep,
Yeah.
she took her shortcut.
Okay, she takes a shortcut en route to Grandma's house. Okay, and Cammie, then what happens?
And then she meets the wolf,
Right?
and they talk for a
Right,
while.
right.
And he asks her where she's going, and she says she's visiting Grandma.
Like
No,
a
she's an
fool, she
idiot.
reveals that, right? I mean, this was like putting it on Facebook. I'm going to Grandma's, right?
It's like
Okay, yeah, okay. And then, Vicki, what happens?
I don't know, there's so many different versions. She then, I guess, she would go say goodbye to the wolf.
Yeah.
And says, okay, goodbye.
Yeah,
And heads to her grandmother's house.
right?
And the wolf in his head thinks, I want the goodie, there's something he wants the goodie bag, or
He wants to eat her.
eat grandmother,
Right.
or...
Right.
So he knows a shortcut and goes to grandma's house faster than Little Red Riding Hood.
Okay, then what happens?
He takes the place of grandmother,
By doing what?
eating her.
In what way? There's a kind of a key.
Whole.
He swallows her whole, okay?
Okay.
Swallows her whole, okay? Then what happens, Derek?
Then Red Riding Hood gets to Grandma's house with
Right.
the bag of goodies, starts talking to her grandma.
Well,
And-
but before, what happened to the wolf? What did he do after he?
He disguised himself as
There we go.
Grandma.
Okay, and then Little Red comes
Yep,
in, and then
comes
what
in.
happens?
And then she says, "Oh, Grandma, what a big nose and eyes and ears." Yeah.
She just wasn't real smart on
No,
that. too.
barely.
Yeah, okay, okay. And then Brooke, what happens?
The wolf eats her too. And
No. She
Yeah.
tricks
Lumberjack.
The wolf. She tricks the wolf, and the lumberjacks or hunter saves
Well,
her.
no, because the lumberjack comes in, and then that's the there's a
There's so many versions of this. In the version
So-
that I know, she tricks the wolf into biting down on a log,
oh yeah.
and then runs out of the house, and the hunter comes in, and they kill the wolf and have
Yeah,
the
I know
wolf
it's slightly
stew.
more.
In the Grimm's
Yeah, they
version,
back out.
Because it was a passing woodsman. He's got an axe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with the axe, what he does is he kills the wolf, and out pops Grandma
Magically.
magically.
Oh, I never remember that. In the part. Grimm's fairy tale,
Remember Grimm's?
Yes.
they just ate him.
Past the fact she's
Yeah.
wearing a riding hood and walking through the forest. Why the hell do you wear a riding hood to go
I
walking?
know, and there's so many unanswered questions with this story. One time, one summer, I did it's kind of a writing camp for junior high kids, and I had them do all of the fairy tales in new style. It was more fun, I can't tell you. Okay, so you guys are absolutely right that this, and I thought
Could we write the headline, Animal Abuse Prevalent in Elderly Homes?
We're going to do this in just a second because I wanted you to see this. This is actually the original. It goes back to 1729. You know how much I like history and stuff, but I thought you liked that.
That wolf looks like a weasel. It's like,
Yeah, it looks, yeah.
I really like that drop cap.
Yeah, isn't that the initial letter looks good? Yeah, okay. I love this. It says, would you mind signing this petition to help save the American timber wolf?
That's awesome.
Isn't that great? Or this one. Red Riding Hood thought the wolf was her grandmother. And she says, sounds like she needed to get some glasses. Or this one. My goodness, grandmother, what big defense lawyer she had. I love the way that she's looking at her. Okay. So, you have told me this story. One more. Grandma, I told you that internet dating was dangerous.
Match.com.
right there.
All right, let me see if this is where I want to go next. Oh, more. You know me. I keep. Updated fairy tales. Little Rude Riding Hood. Okay. Wow, Grandma, you've really let yourself go. This one. Was Robin Hood the daddy of Red Riding Hood? Yeah. It does make sense. So here's what I want you to do, and Derek's going to stop the tape for just a second here. Well, as you guys can imagine, what I'm having you try to do is I'm trying to, what's the newest information, right? And I just happened to write one, okay? So if the headline was, Woodcutter saves girl, comma, grandmother, right? A passing woodcutter, notice that I delayed the name, right? A passing woodcutter today, keep the when close to the verb, saved the life of a local girl, delay the name, right? Don't use red, and rescued her grandmother by killing the would-be assailant with his axe. Now, the one thing that I don't have in here, I have the who, I have the what, I have the when,
You don't have the where.
I don't have the where, and I don't, and I have the,
why.
I don't have the why, I have the how he did it, okay? So now look, see how I've got almost all of them in there, right? And now, second paragraph, right, the bridge. The unidentified woodcutter told police he was passing by the cottage of Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother when he heard the youngsters' cries for help. Notice that's the where, here's the why. Could I stop that story now? It's probably all I get with CNN headline news, right? Yeah.
I don't know, that's a little wordy for some
Yeah,
reason.
yeah. With one axe blow, he killed the attacker, identified as the local wolf, and quickly cut open the animal, who had swallowed the grandmother whole. Now, what do inquiring minds want to know, right? There's a lot of unanswered questions. But at this point,
Like, what neighborhood is this in?
yeah, exactly. Both the girl and her grandmother are reported in excellent condition. Okay. Now I'm going to go through the chronology part of it, right? And I'm going en route. Little Red Riding Hood's mother told police she had asked her daughter to take some food to the ailing grandmother who lives in another village. Although an autopsy on the wolf has been, has not been completed, police said they expected it to reveal that the wolf swallowed the grandmother whole because he had apparently not eaten for several days. Okay, so that's how that happened, right? When Little Red Riding Hood arrived at the cottage, the wolf, pretending to be grandmother, tricked the little girl into entering the house. The youngster later said she thought grandmother looked different, but it wasn't until the wolf lunged for her that she realized who it was. So now we explain that little fact. But as you look at this inverted pyramid style, do you see that I could go with just the lead and we would know what happened? The bridge gives me a little bit more information. I kind of call this the throwaway because I didn't really quite have enough room to say that they were okay. But now, do you see this is, if I'm interested in this story, I will read on, correct? But if I've got enough, I know what happened. And in the Confederacy, right, during the Civil War, this is where they would have cut the lines, right? They would have cut the telegraph lines, and that's all we would have gotten. But all of this is additional information. If we had time, what I would do is read this to you, and we would time it, and you would see this is about all you get in a broadcast story. You just don't have room for all the details. So.
What'd you say is the average, like 10 to 15 seconds maybe?
Yeah, exactly. So if we had time, we would try an alternatively, but don't you like this? It's your editor. Tell her I'm working on my first draft.
I'm going to have to save that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So let me just see if I have another one here. So, to remember that as we build this news story, you guys know the lead is the hardest thing to write, right? Then the bridge fills in the gaps. It fills in the blanks. It may, in the one I gave you, it showed you how you got an extra 5 of the 5 W's and H's I can't get in. I could do that, and it's going to add some specifics. The cartoon says, "Those years in Paris were to be among the finest of her life. Looking back, she once remarked, 'Those years in Paris were among the finest of my life.'" That was what she said when she looked back upon those years in Paris, where she spent some of the finest years of her life. Right? We want to condense things. I think this needs a little editing, right?
You know,
So-
you'd be surprised how many times you see that in AP stories.
Yeah.
This person said this, quote,
Yeah.
saying this, person said.
Yeah.
I see it on CNN a lot
Yeah.
too. It's like this person said this,
Holy.
and then it zooms in. This person saying this, and then it says this person said this
Yeah.
again.
Well, can you guess that the internet has also had versions of this as well? This headline is "Budget Problems Responsible for Deaths of Girl and Grandmother." In this version, they die. A young girl and her grandmother were mauled to death by a vicious wolf in the National Forest last week. The girl, whose name was withheld pending notification of relatives, was dressed all in red and running an errand for her mother. It says, I just asked her to take this meal to Granny, said her grief-stricken mother. Ever since the problems with the budget, the Senior Meals on Wheels program has not been able to deliver Granny's meals regularly. Apparently, the tragedy occurred when a wolf entered the grandmother's isolated cabin. The grandmother, known by her friends and family as Granny, had been unable to get new glasses because of problems with Medicaid, and perhaps thought the wolf was a large dog. After killing the grandmother, the wolf apparently laid in wait for the little girl. Friends of the family stated that normally the little girl would not have gone by herself into the forest, but because of budget problems, local bus routes have been eliminated. Right? Local authorities stated the tragedy could have been averted. An unnamed source indicated that typically there would have been 1 or 2 forest rangers patrolling the particular area of the forest. One of them could have saved that little girl and her grandmother, even if he had to axe the wolf to death. Unfortunately, the rangers were on furlough due to the budget crisis, said the source. Authorities in Washington had no comment. Okay. And even 50 Cent gets into rapping Little Red Riding Hood, right? It says, oh, that's nice. The rapper 50 Cent, whose songs reveal his connoisseurship of gangs, guns, drugs, and vainglorious boasting, has written a children's book entitled Playground, an autobiographical work about school bully who mends his ways. I'm sure Mr. Cent has done a fine job, but couldn't he have strayed a little further from his comfort zone? I think we'd have preferred a 50 Cent retelling of a fairy tale like I can't say this, guys, you're going to have to help me.
The Red Riding Hood.
Red Riding Hood, right? All the chicks in the forest want to ball me. I can't rap, but I'm going to have it.
Wait.
Leave it at that.
Can you post it on
Can you read
Facebook?
it? Can anybody read this?
Yeah.
Can you read it in a rap?
No.
Oh
No.
my God.
Anybody? Nobody can do this? Can you do it? Can
All
you
the
do it,
chicks
Vicky?
all the chicks in the forest want to ball me. The big bad wolf is what they call me. With the Mira and Mara Crystal.
Crystal.
And
my-
they say, bro. They say, bro, what big dazzling teeth you got. One day I see this chick. She's so fit, I blow a gasket. She's on her way to grandma's with a pork pie in a basket. I drive my head. I can't do it.
All I can tell you is I'm leaving a very disturbing picture in your head.
Me
Okay?
too.
All right. Okay, I will see you guys next week then.